I really love the two close-ups where they're staring at camera. There was a point where I was I had in editorial thought about starting the movie there, and then sort of flashing back, just sort of like a pre-lap, like these two dueling close-ups where they're insulting each other and, dragging my balls through shattered glass and feels like God is projectile vomiting right in my eyes and it burns. Those are probably my two favorite. So I was there was a time where I opened the movie on those two insults.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 3 of The Fourth Wall. I am your host, Griffin Schiller, and this is the show where we break down the fourth wall of the film industry as we get an inside look through our conversations with industry professionals, ranging from directors, actors, you name it. This show is, of course, part of the Playlist Podcast Network, where you can find our other shows such as The Discourse, Indie Beat, Be Real, and much more. Whatever your fix is, I'm sure we got you covered over there. Now, this week, I'm very excited once again because this person is an exciting director to watch, just given his background in the industry. My guest this week, as I alluded to last week, is none other than David Leitch. And one of the reasons why David Leitch is an exciting talent to watch is because of his background in stunt performance. Him and John Wick director Chaz Stahelski are two of the biggest names in stunt performance. And so when they started to make the transition from stunt performer, stunt coordinator into directing, they were people that I wanted to keep an eye on because I knew they were going to bring something special to the table with the projects they took on. And they certainly didn't disappoint when they both teamed up to give us the 2014 incredible action flick, John Wick. While Stahelski stuck with the John Wick franchise, Leitch moved on to tackle films such as Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2, and now he's joined the Fast and Furious universe with Hobbs and Shaw. During my conversation with David Leitch, we talked a lot about the action in the film, how much was done practically versus CG, and Leitch even breaks down how they executed one of Hobbs and Shaw's most insane action set pieces in the helicopter bit in Samoa, which I'm sure you've all seen from the trailers, where Dwayne Johnson is literally lassoing this Black Hawk. It is nuts. We also touched a bit on the film's comedy, an alternate opening, and some scene-stealing cameos, which does venture out into spoiler territory. So if you have not seen Hobbs and Shaw, I will warn you before we get to the spoiler section of the interview. It is very brief, but I do want to let you all know in advance. So without further ado, let's get into this thing. Here is my conversation with director David Leitch. Something that I just absolutely loved about this film was how the cars, the colors, and the overall aesthetic of Hobbs and Shaw respectively perfectly matched the personality of each character. And so I especially loved how you showcased this in the opening. So how much of a say did Statham and Dwayne Johnson have in choosing respective elements to showcase this?
They were pretty supportive of my vision of the characters, and I will say the characters are really well defined by them in the past 3 movies. So they've done their homework in those films, and I did want to hit it home, obviously, because it's a new franchise, and I had an aesthetic I wanted to put to both of them and their worlds. But I guess Shaw is more of the sort of the biggest transformation in terms of where he's been in the past films and to where he ends up now. But I think they were all sort of excited about, how we were going to portray them in the beginning of this movie and set up the dichotomy of these guys, and both visually and obviously in the action as well, in that first little fight beat.
Absolutely. And I really, and even down to the fighting styles, which, I mean, you're right. That was stuff that we had seen in the past, but here, with their own film, you were really able to concentrate on giving that on I guess solidifying like how they went about like, you know, fighting and whatnot.
Yeah, it was really like it was our opportunity to really strike a pose for the characters and make sure that the characters were defined clearly. And it was something that I pitched to the studio and to Chris, this sort of split screen idea. It was one of my first ideas for the film. Like I thought, like, wouldn't it be great to just, you know, the subliminal message is that they're the same, really. But when you really, you know, but the visual messages, you're seeing all their differences. But, you know, by the lens size and the focal length and the fact that they're kind of doing the same thing, and like they solve problems in a different way, but they're essentially the same guy with like a moral compass, trying to do the right thing, flawed at times, you know, characters that we love, and hopefully they can put aside their shit to get together and save the world. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was kind of funny because I was like, the entire time I couldn't help but feel like the movie was just this like super heightened version of like Man from U.N.C.L.E. or something like that. And it was like very different from like previous Fast and Furious films. But like it still had those same sensibilities of like a Fast and Furious movie. And so it got me thinking, like, what sort of things were you looking to when you were trying to shape this film, whether it be like references, you know, stuff like that?
Well, I think we wanted the overall touchstone is obviously the Fast universe, and Chris Morgan, you know, sort of the architect of that world, was a key producer on this. And for me, you know, I wanted to achieve three things. I think I wanted to have the emotional core of a Fast movie, and I think we delivered that in that. Both Hobbs and Shaw at the beginning of the movie are estranged from their families, and they need to, like, unfortunately, it took global stakes for them to, like, you know, actually reconnect. And I think that's a big moral message for all of us. It's like, it shouldn't take the end of the world to reconnect with the ones who matter most. And, you know, our guys learned the hard way. The other thing is I wanted to have these great set pieces a la Fast and, like, blow them out in a big, spectacular way. And, like, that, you know, summer audiences love. And the thing that I wanted to do that was more original for us was to change the tone a little bit, to have more fun. You know, Hobbs and Shaw are known for their comedy and their chemistry. And I wanted to just blow that out for 2 hours, you know, like, let's make this fun ride for 2 hours. And so, you know, we brought in, you know, additional help in that respect. We got, you know, great scenes with them, and their dynamic is undeniable. And so we tried to have more fun with the tone, and we created sort of a roller coaster popcorn movie that you know, fans can love, and but I still think has all the sort of heart and soul that a Fast would have. Yeah,
well, I mean, you mentioned the comedy and the dynamic between the two of them. That was like immediately, that walking out, that was the thing that really struck me. I mean, obviously, like the over-the-top action and just like the fun summer popcorn fun, but like one of my favorite parts was just like the banter between Jason Statham and Dwayne Johnson. And I mean, like some of those insult battles, I just never wanted to end. They were incredible. So when you're shooting those bits, is it all improv? And like, if so, how long do you let the two of them kind of go at it?
It's not, I know, by the way, those are so fun. And that first one, obviously in the CIA office in London, that was the first day that they were actually working together on set.
So no way.
So it was like one of those moments of like, oh shit, here we go. Like, you know, they're going to, the words on the page, and they're going to start doing it. And they had both come doing their homework, and they had both written alt lines. And so it was less improv and more like thoughtful research of like, how can I creatively insult this guy tomorrow? Yeah. And so they would go home and like come back with, you know, more ideas. And, you know, I would bring in lists, and so would Chris. And it was fun, but I guess it was less improv and more like, you know, shooting alts and then sort of like curating all that in post. Yeah.
So I guess like how many iterations did you come up with for those scenes? And then like what was the best insult you guys came up with, whether or not it was in the film or not?
That's hard to say. No, there's a lot of iterations, and I think there's a lot of there'll be a lot of stuff in the additional material on the Blu-ray and home entertainment. Yeah. Because you just couldn't fit all the insults in the movie. I don't know. I really love the two close-ups where they're staring at camera. There was a point where I was going to I had in editorial thought about starting the movie there and then sort of flashing back, you know, just sort of like a pre-lap, like these two dueling close-ups where they're insulting each other and, you know, dragging my balls through shattered glass and like, feels like God is projectile vomiting right in my eyes and it burns. Those are probably my two favorite. And so I was getting, there was a time where I opened the movie on those two insults. And you know what? It was actually a really fun version of the first reel. But again, like as the movie evolved, we really liked the idea of this cold open and seeing Brixton and setting up the stakes because we knew we were going to put the comedy off for a second. But yeah, I love those two lines.
Yeah, those were incredible. So kind of moving away from the comedy and into the action, the action and really just like the overall plot for this movie is like, you know, it's absolutely insane. And it takes the already extreme, you know, Fast and Furious franchise and it kind of pushes the boundary further. So like when you're planning these action set pieces and the story, like how far are you willing to go and how much did you have to reel in from those like initial, you know, things that you came up with?
Well, we kind of went in stages. You know, I think that obviously there's a lot of fights in the movie that are very grounded and they're more in the style of the stuff that I've done in the past.
Yeah.
You know, and they're sort of like that sort of bone crunching fights and things like that. But there is this appetite for this, you know, the over the top action, especially when it comes to the vehicle stuff. And so, we would start to pre-visit and we'd share it with the studio and I'd get Chris's input and it would, you know, it would evolve. And I don't think, I think there was always sort of like this encouragement from the studio and Chris. It's like the fast audience loves bigger. So go for it, you know, go for it. And, again, it might be a little bit more heightened than I normally would do, but I think for the fast fans and in this world, we wanted to make some bold choices and do some like crazy things that can be sort of memorable. So I've never not succeeded by going big.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was like immediately something that I was just like, yes, I'm like eating all of this up because it's taking everything that the Fast franchise does and it's just bringing it to another level and like
gotta embrace it.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. So two of my favorite sequences in the film are the McLaren chase and then the helicopter tow towards the end. I'm just wondering if you can kind of walk me through tackling those particular sequences, specifically the helicopter one. That one kind of blew my mind. And I don't know how much was done practically versus with visual effects, but...
Well, the helicopter sequence, quite interestingly, is something that evolved. So we got here, you know, by no intention, we actually shot most of the movie chronologically just because of weather and schedule and things like that. And
cool.
We were in Kauai shooting for Samoa, and we had this opportunity of I had some additional days that I thought I could sort of expand that sequence. And so we were already here when we came up with the idea of connecting all the cars. And what I was hoping is that it could be a bigger metaphor for the family coming together. And sort of like demonstrating in an action way, like the reconnection of family. And then also be a big, crazy Fast and Furious set piece. So we started pre-visit, and you would be surprised like how much is practical. I have a great visual effects supervisor, Dan Glass, who's you know been doing movies since the Matrix films, and you know his motto and my motto is always get as much practical in camera as possible, and then CG helps you know tell the story. And what it does is it challenges your CG artist, to do better work because they got to match the photography that's already in the frame. So when you look at that Black Hawk in those sequences, it's probably 90% real. I mean, we had a great, incredible helicopter pilot, Fred North, who was photographing the Black Hawk, an incredible Black Hawk pilot. And then I had a stunt team of some of the best drivers in the world, friends I've known in the business for 20 years. Chris O'Hara, the stunt coordinator, put together that sequence, and they are driving the shit out of those cars, and we're shooting a massive. And then I had a great special effects team that's like, making cars drive on two wheels.
Yeah.
So it feels like the cars are being lifted off of the thing. So it was a real sort of beautiful merging of visual effects, practical effects, and stunts. And I think that people don't, really understand, like they always sort of write it off to be like, well, that was all CG. And I'm like, well, no, how much practical stunts go into those big sequences? It's a ton.
Well, it was like one of those things where it's like knowing who you are and like your work in the industry. I was watching it and I was like, most of this has to be practical, and especially it didn't look CG. So it was like one of those things that I was just blown. My mind was blown how you were able to pull that off. Again,
it's like it's the illusion, and so if you have the cliff edge is real, and two of the cars in the shot are real, and the helicopter is real, then those other three cars feel real.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the foreground car is real and it's kicking up dust, but the car behind it and the helicopter is real, but the other cars behind it aren't. Like you're working with practical stunts and practical things to make, CG, enhance CG, and vice versa. And CG, honestly, on these movies, I had 1,600 visual effects shots. So there's always help from the visual effects team to enhance everything in a way. So.
Hey guys, just wanted to pop in here real quick and let you all know that coming up is the spoiler section of this interview. So if you have not seen Hobbs and Shaw, be sure to do so before continuing on with this episode. Or if you don't care about spoilers, feel free to continue on at your own risk. All right, back to the conversation. Just a couple of last minute questions here before I let you go, and these are the spoiler questions I had. So, there are a couple of just really scene stealing cameos. Especially from Ryan Reynolds, who just comes in there and he just takes control of the scene. Was that something?
Amazing.
Yeah, was that something that you had planned, or did he just like stop by and like just do a bunch of improv? Like, how did the whole thing go down?
It was planned. I mean, it was an idea I had, and I asked him. I'm like, I had a scene in the movie which had a lot of exposition about the virus, and so we're setting up plot. Yeah. And those scenes can always be tricky. And I knew he was shooting in Europe, and we were in London, and I reached out and I said, hey man, would you be interested in playing this character? Like, just come in, do a cameo, it'll be fun, And he said, yeah. I'm like, really?
Yeah, wow.
Sent him the pages, and he, rewrote them for his character Locke, and he basically came in with all these creative sort of ideas on how he could be connected to DJ and in their world and sort of brought that character to life. And that was 100% the reason I called him, because I knew that instead of stuffy exposition, I would have an incredible scene that was not only funny, but that actually sort of set up a relationship between these two characters and Locke, his character, in the world. Yeah. And so we did that scene, and everyone, on that day was like laughing their asses off, and we knew it was going to be a big deal. So when it came to the end of the movie and we needed some stuffy exposition about what are we going to do with the virus, what happened to the virus now that our heroes got it, we shot a piece with Ryan where he explains that he's taken the virus to a secure facility, and then again Ryan comes up with a great riff that pays off a lot of stuff that we'd set up in the Pancake House, and he's just brilliant, and I think our relationship on Deadpool was so good that we really have fun working together, and it's just cool that actors and directors can do these favors for each other.
That was absolutely. I know I got to go real quick, but one final question for you. So I heard there was like a rumor that Keanu Reeves was actually supposed to be like the big bad guy in the film, and that you actually like shot a scene but didn't end up using it. Was that actually true? No, we never shot a scene, and I did talk to Keanu about
about being in the film, and it was really, it just wasn't the right time when he was doing things, and it was really, we've been talking about it for a long time, and it wasn't really sure in like what capacity, and so it was early on, and then it kept lingering, and I kept thinking about, you know, even just through editorial, I was thinking of ideas like how, if he was interested and he wanted to be seated in this world, like how we could do it, and so it really came down, I think, to things that he wanted to do, and then also just schedule everybody's schedule, and so.
Gotcha. Awesome.
But yeah, we talked, and it didn't work out on this one, and I look forward to working with Keanu on something. Hopefully.
Yeah. Hopefully we can. Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, hopefully we can see him in the sequel. That'd be a lot of fun. But anyways, thank you, David, so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. It was a great movie. I had a lot of fun with it.
Awesome.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, well, there you have it. There was my conversation with director David Leitch. I really enjoyed him breaking down that helicopter sequence. It is nuts. And I sure as hell can't wait for the Blu-ray special features, which are sure to include some extended insult sequences. It's gonna be a fun time. Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw opens in theaters this Friday, August 2nd. You're definitely gonna wanna get your tickets because it is a blast. But the most important thing is I want to hear from you all. I want to know what your favorite David Leitch film is down in the comments section of wherever you're listening to this episode, or you can feel free to tweet at me at Griff Schiller. Be sure to subscribe to the Playlist Podcast Network for more episodes of The Fourth Wall, along with the rest of our diverse film-centric catalog. And also, drop us a rating or a review, as it greatly helps the show get noticed and lets me know what you all are loving and what you think we can improve upon. I'll give you all a little teaser for next week. I should be speaking with the star of the new epic series Pennyworth, Mr. Alfred Pennyworth himself, Jack Bannon, and so that should be a lot of fun. I'm very much looking forward to that. Thank you all for your support thus far. I've really appreciated all the kind words and comments and your feedback, most importantly. Thank you all for listening once again, and I'll catch you next week. Take care.